Looks like a lot is going on in the world as always, and we're definitely going to be talking about that here on World Politics. I've got my man Rick Rosner with me, but definitely a lot's taking place. President Trump chases after a toddler wandering across the stage and takes a shot at Biden. I guess he was taking a shot that he's quicker than Biden and everything along those lines. So that's one of the stories that I am seeing in the news and all along those lines. And I'm sure there are other things that are going on as well as people have been concerned about Trump's health, just like they used to be concerned about Biden's health and all along those lines. So that's definitely something that folks are talking about in the news and all along that kind of way. And we'll see what other news stories we see and what other things are taking place because I know that definitely Rick takes a look at the Drudge Report. So apparently, Senator Mitch McConnell has been discharged from a rehabilitation center. So McConnell announces discharge from a rehabilitation center. So after this various times he was not being around, they're saying that he's been released after a fall in June. So he says he's been discharged from a rehab center and will continue his recovery at his home. And Trump grows angry over reports on depleted munitions, believing it weakens him in the Iran negotiations. Trump vows to find the leakers after reports of depleted Iran war munitions. And Republican U.S. Senator Randy Paul will ask Justice Department to prosecute Fauci. We did hear definitely Rick talk about that on World Edition earlier today and all in that space. Sanders says he doesn't believe he will endorse Hong. I don't think so, is what he's saying. And Americans' retirement nightmare has arrived, is what some folks are saying as well. And it looks like 3 North Carolina HBCUs are currently ranked among the top 10 public universities. I know North Carolina A&T was one of them, and there might be some other ones as well. So definitely that is something that folks are talking about also. But I'm going to bring in Rick, see what Rick got on his mind and all along those lines, because we've got a show about music that'll be coming on later on as well. So what do you
That's
see?
that 3 out of the top 10 being historically black colleges and universities. That is a big deal.
That's a very big deal.
Because the Ivies plus Stanford used to own that list.
Yep. It says that the 3 North Carolina HBCUs are ranked as the top 10 public universities in the United States for
Okay, public
2026.
university, that's slightly different than the Ivies, but still,
It's
that's
still
that's a
good with 2 of the top 10s located in the Piedmont Triad. So North Carolina A&T is one, Winston-Salem State University is another one, and Elizabeth City State University is the third. So North Carolina A&T is ranked number 1 on the list, and A&T is the largest HBCU in the country and known as the biggest producer of black engineers at both the graduate and undergraduate level. So it's definitely known for that. And Winston-Salem State occupies the 8th spot, and it's built on the core of health sciences, which is anchored by its physical therapy and healthcare administration degrees, alongside new offerings including applied AI. They've got an applied AI course and business, and Elizabeth City is 9th in the list, and it's expanded its workforce first approach into advanced manufacturing, cybersecurity, emergency management, education, and aviation. I remember there
Well,
was a
I have
time
a
that we actually had a
theory.
gentleman here. Hmm.
I have a theory, which is you've, since I've been coming on this on Pod TV, I've learned about the North Carolina Research Triangle,
Yeah.
which is,
Yes.
a tech heavy triad of cities where you
Right.
live. I feel like if you're a smart kid and you want to go to college in a place that isn't crazy, the North Carolina might be the place to go. But like if you're a smart kid, you can go to the West Coast. You can go to Stanford. You can go to Silicon Valley, and there's all sorts of tech bro insanity out there. You can go to you can go to the Northeast. You can go to
Right.
Columbia, Harvard, Princeton, Yale, which have their own craziness. But I feel like North Carolina, you can have like a nice life without, you can go to Georgia and there's all sorts of Atlanta, where plenty of good schools, but also like America's best strip joints. So if you have a tendency to like strip joints, you might get distracted from your studies. I feel like North Carolina is a nice, like, what can you say on that?
No, and I agree with that. And North Carolina's got a nice mixture of a lot of things. A lot of people like North Carolina because you can go down to the beach. It's not that far. Because even my brother and my dad will go regularly down there and all along those lines. So the beach isn't that far away. The mountains aren't that far away. So it's got a lot of various areas. And of course, we do have the Raycharles Triangle Park. We've also got the Charlotte Mecklenburg area, and we've also got the Triad, which two of those schools are at, which is kind of like it's all triangle-based cities as well as Greensboro, Winston-Salem, and High Point, if I remember correctly, and everything like that. And there are definitely a lot of places that are tech-heavy and all in that space. You know, Durham is actually known as the city of medicine because of the Research Triangle Park and also because of the various hospitals here as well. So definitely that is something that, yeah, folks can definitely have success here. But I was just talking to one of my coworkers, and we were talking about how there's a lot of cookie cutter kind of building going on as well. So they were thinking that Durham in some ways might be losing its flavor, and that's something that people are trying to guard against because you want
Well,
to have development, but you don't want to lose your flavor.
so there's another thing that it used to be, and probably still is to some extent. One of the reasons you go to college is you might meet somebody. I met my wife when we were both going to the University of Colorado, which is, any big state school. You can, if you're a good student, you can make it into one of the best universities in the world. The resources are there. I was a lazy ass student, so I didn't take full advantage. But still, anyway, I feel like maybe if you go to school in North Carolina, like I was a little scared. I started applying to the Ivies, and then I'm like, I can't compete socially in the Ivies. I'm awkward even in Colorado. But I feel like people who go to the Ivies are like hardcore, preppies and rich kids, and I feel like maybe if you went to school in like a normal place like North Carolina, if you meet somebody, maybe they wouldn't be crazy. I met my wife, as I said, and she turns out to only be a little crazy, much less crazy than somebody I would have met if I'd hooked up at Harvard. If I'd married somebody I met if I'd gone to Harvard, 90% chance I'd be divorced by now.
Yeah, I mean, there's a good chance of that because that door. There's a good chance of that, and along those lines, because a lot of times people are very much caught up in meeting people when they go to the college, and they may have that college hookup. But the danger of LA, I would think, would be that you're in the middle of that entertainment industry, and
LA is terrible for dating. But I was already with my wife. We weren't married yet. We were already living together when we moved out to LA, which is her hometown. So I've never had a date in LA.
I think that was the case with one of my schoolmates. I remember John Fastron, and I think he's still out in LA, but his wife was from the LA area, and they met in once they met in LA, and he's been out there with her for decades. I don't think he ever moved back to Minnesota, even though he was a diehard Edina person. So he lived and was born outside the suburbs of Minneapolis. But yeah, he met his wife, and they had children, and they have lived in LA for a number of years. I can't remember. I think John might have been in the engineering field, but we were college roommates. So I need to reach back to him and see if he's still on the planet and everything like that. But it's been a minute since I had talked to John, but he was one of my two roommates. I know the other roommate is still around and is still very active because he was involved in state government in Wisconsin and also as an entrepreneur and everything like that. So I think I only had John for one semester, whereas Ruben Anthony I had for about 3 semesters or maybe even 3.5. I told you I lived in a frat house at one point as well, which is something I would not recommend, even though.
No, I was in a frat. I've lived in a frat house. I lived in a sorority for a summer. They needed like a summer security guard. Yeah, the frat sorority thing is it's kind of an artificial continuation of the social structures of high school.
Oh no, it's definitely that. It is definitely that whatsoever. What is our thoughts about this notion of I guess Trump is bragging that he can chase after toddlers and everything like that? Because that was one of the stories that I saw that he.
All right, so Biden might have neuropathy, where you've got constant pins and needles in your hands and feet, which can lead to falls because if your feet are constantly tingling, you don't know where you're placing them. So neuropathy. So if he's got that, yeah, he might trip more unless he looks at his feet as he walks to make sure they're placed right. Biden might have Parkinson's and they just never announced it. So yeah, Biden might be teetery. Neither of those. Now, Parkinson's can affect your mind a little bit, but there's no, they probably would have announced he had Parkinson's if he has Parkinson's. I don't know. I mean, there was a whole West Wing plot where I think the president had MS and they hid it. But he was a liberal president on a liberal show, so they kind of presented it as maybe an okay. Anyway, that was a long time ago, and fictitious. But yeah, Trump is still able to walk around a golf course and stuff. But Trump has also been president for more than a year and a half, so he can joke about Biden and he can blame Biden, but still, he's been president for quite a while now.
Yeah, this is an interesting story I just saw about world politics, but apparently this young 16-year-old did not know they were black and everything like that. So they were saying that they were performing in an Afrobeats dance at school. As I moved their body to the music, I couldn't help but wonder why am I in this? There was no doubt I was enjoying myself. I just couldn't understand why I had been chosen for this particular number. Afterwards, I asked my teacher what the casting process has been, and the teacher said we wanted to feature all the black dancers in the year group. They replied offhandedly. And this was my first time in their life that anyone had referred to me as black. And at that moment, I realized that all the suspicions I had about my heritage had just been proven correctly. And this person said that they were 16 years old and their world had changed forever at that particular time. So this is a woman named Nicole Botha and everything like that. So apparently they were born in South Africa and adopted as a newborn in 1997, and their birth mother had another child about 18 months before having me, and had gone to the adoption agency 2 or 3 weeks before they would do. And she didn't feel able to cope. And according to my adoption papers, her father was the same person who had fathered her mother's previous child, which meant on paper both my parents were white Afrikaans. It later turned out that this was not the case. So this person apparently just found out that they were black, even though in the pictures they looked very black and everything like that. So apparently they did not know, even though South Africa is very much an apartheid country and everything like that. So this lady says, I grew up in the countryside, which at the time had a very white population. When I was little, I always accepted I was white. I just didn't know any different, and I didn't face any racial tensions in my childhood. When I saw black people on TV or in the media, I didn't really liken myself to them, even though in hindsight, it was glaringly obvious. Both my parents and I always used to battle with my hair. I had a horrible relationship with hairbrushing, hair washing, hairdressers, all of it. Once when she was about 12, her hair was so matted that she cut a chunk right out with scissors. Her uncle, a hairdresser.
I'm too lazy to comb my hair, so in back it gets matted, and I'll go after it with a scissors every once in a while. But we live in the era of being surprised by your genetics.
And that's what she did. Apparently, she said that she had a boyfriend who convinced her to take a DNA test. We were sitting in the cafe when he passed me the Ancestry DNA kit. Just do it, he urged me, so you can have your answers. I did the test right there and then in the cafe. It was just a tiny mouth swab, but my hand shook with adrenaline and excitement. And it turns out that she got the results. Her father is black, of Bantu people heritage. And it looks like she found out that she definitely has some African heritage and everything like that.
If you look at the media, and you look at politics, one of our most beloved recent presidents it had a white mom and a black dad. Right. And his presidency was a lot less annoying than the current presidency.
Oh, no, a lot less.
And if you look at entertainment, it's not a bad thing to be mixed race. To speak in stereotypes, mixed race people often win the looks lottery, where freaking there's a guy who was on Grey's Anatomy for 10 years. I forget his name. I met him once, and super nice guy, a beautiful guy, obviously mixed race. Like if you get and I shouldn't talk like this, but I'm gonna.
Even Patrick Mahomes, the football player, I think he's mixed race and everything.
Yeah, so like if you get somebody with, mocha skin and green eyes, or then move to Hollywood.
Yeah, move to Hollywood and everything like that. By the way, speaking of Hollywood, I did see a world politics story that will impact it because it is involving a Hollywood empire that is apparently being bought. So I'd love to hear your thoughts about this. But Britain has cleared Paramount's $110 billion takeover of Warner Brothers. So it looks like they're going to spend $110 billion, and because it is I guess, a British company, they have cleared the takeover and everything like
So
that. So
I don't understand. I didn't know that there was any British dimension to the Paramount takeover.
Well, apparently they say Britain cleared the takeover. So I'm just pulling up the article to see what the deal is with Britain and everything like that. It says UK secures a 5-year commitment from Paramount's David Ellison. Channel 5 News stays separate from CNN International and CBS News. And CMA says the deal would not lessen the competition in 3 markets. So Britain's government and its competition watchdog cleared a Paramount's $110 billion acquisition of Warner Brothers Discovery on Thursday after David Ellison provided reassurances, leaving U.S. states led by California as the major hurdle to the deal. So they still got to deal with places like your area, California, but it looks like at least Britain has cleared the deal with some money involved and everything like that.
So there's a
I
bunch
guess
of
they must
politics
have.
involved in this. David Ellison, who's the Paramount buyer of Time Warner, is a friend
Right.
of Trump, and Trump put his thumb on the scales so that Netflix got screwed out of the deal and Paramount got screwed into the deal. And yeah, there is a ton of well, I don't know about a ton, but quite a bit of consolidation in entertainment, and less stuff being made in the past 5 years since COVID and the strike, though it might be picking up lately. But being kind of in the industry and being in an industry town, I live in Studio City, and that means movie Studio City. We are always cheering for stuff getting made. We have a big lot, the movie back lot of a big studio called Radford Studios. And that thing went bankrupt about a year ago. It was supposed to be worth $1.8 billion. Netflix, after getting screwed out of Time Warner, has stepped up and is supposed to buy our studio for $450 million. That's a 75% discount. And we're excited because we need that studio to be bustling to keep our little city going.
Yeah, y'all need that bustling economy and everything like that. I did see another political sports.
Netflix
Sorry,
got a deal. Like they got a $2 billion studio for 75% off.
Yeah, they got a real deal. What do you think about when they move major events and change it around? We saw the World Cup change when they made it a multi-city hosted event, and they're going to do that now in the next World Cup. But now I'm seeing that the Derby is changing, and apparently racing, and I wish Shaquille was here, is not happy because racing is reacting to Preakness moving to 22 days after the Derby. So I think that in the past it had been like a week and a half or 2 weeks after, but now it's going to be 21 days after the Derby. And I think that the folks in the racing world aren't that happy because that just gives the horses more time to get hurt and everything along those lines. But it does sound like
I don't know. I would think that giving them an extra week would give them a more time to not get hurt, but I don't know. I don't know
either yet, but they said they want to move to 8 days, move to Sunday, May 23rd, 8 days later than its traditional third Saturday in May slot, and 22 days after the Kentucky Derby. So definitely, it says they say the move is Maryland's answer to a problem that has dogged the Middle Jewel for years. Recent Derby winners, including Sovereignty and Golden Tempo, have skipped the race to target the Belmont Stakes. So I guess it gives them more time to train if they have extra time. So in the sense of injury, maybe not, but more time to train. That's what it sounds like.
I don't know. I mean, all these races, I believe, have really young horses, right? They're 2-year-olds and 3-year-olds racing. So I don't know if they're more at risk than older, more seasoned horses. I don't know. I mean, I know that we have a racetrack out here that got in trouble because so many horses were dying. But I'm not any kind of, I don't know crap about horse racing. So
apparently, I'm looking at some of the African news in politics, and it looks like
Nigerian security. Like, one thing about horse racing is maybe there's a way for AI to save some of these horses. That when a horse breaks its leg, you got to shoot it because there's no way to rehab a broken leg in a horse because they weigh so much, and you can't hang them from a giant sling because they've got this big gut. It's just physically unfeasible. But if you have robot legs that you can put on a horse that will support the horse while the leg heals, maybe in the near future, breaking a leg isn't a death sentence for a horse.
Yeah, hopefully not. I am seeing some news in politics from Africa, including something that involves elephants. So apparently there's mysterious elephant deaths in Kenya that are raising questions around pesticides. So a wave of Kenyan elephant deaths have been blamed on pesticides, but some of the experts are telling the BBC that they're doubtful that that's the cause. Maybe they're thinking that it's poachers or other things that are causing these elephants to die, but they're trying to blame it on pesticides and all along those lines. And apparently an Air India new Ethiopian CEO is facing financial and safety turbulence. So definitely that's something going on. And South Africa plans new rules on ex-leaders' foreign trips after Zuma's visit to India. So Jacob Zuma was pictured with a businessman allegedly at the heart of a corruption scandal in South Africa. So these corruption scandals aren't just in the U.S., they're all over the world and everything like that. And Nigerian security forces rescued more than 300 abductees. And the big news out of Africa is the notion of what's going on with Ebola. So a Democratic Republic of Congo riverboat is under quarantine for Ebola after 5 deaths. And the health minister says all the passengers are being screened as a precautionary measure. So Ebola is definitely very much out there, but they're saying Uganda is winning the battle against Ebola as the virus spreads in the Democratic Republic of Congo. So that is something.
This is a big year for Ebola. So let's look it up. So I'm asking, this is the biggest year for Ebola since what year? Biggest since 2018 through 2020, the second largest in history. So I guess this is the third largest Ebola year in history with 3,600 cases and more than 1,000 deaths in just over.
It looks like it looks like there's a singer that's gotten in trouble because of some remarks she made. So just days after the South African singer Tyla released the dates for her upcoming world tour, Nigeria has been removed from the list of destinations. So on Monday, the Grammy winner announced details of her globetrotting appearances coming on the heels of the release of her second album, A-Pop, and her official website initially named 34 cities, including Lagos, Johannesburg, and Cape Town, where she will be performing. But by Friday, an updated list was published without the Nigerian city. No reason has been given for the change, but there have been growing calls in Nigeria for the 24-year-old to cancel her concert in the country over the recent wave of anti-migrant sentiment in South Africa. So there's a sentiment, and we've talked about it, like with Seyoto and other places around the way that migrants are treated throughout the country. So apparently she's getting caught in a migrant dispute, for lack of a better term.
Can we talk about the U.S. Strategic Petroleum Reserve for a little bit?
Please.
All right. So the Strait of Hormuz handles 80% of the world's oil. It remains mostly closed. So the U.S. has this reserve that when it's fully stocked, there are these salt caverns under Texas and Louisiana, where the U.S. holds up to 500 million gallons of oil in case there's an emergency. And given the emergency with the Iran war, Trump has gotten authorization to use 172 million gallons out of 470. So we're down to about 300 million gallons. And that's close to the limit, because when you pull out too much, you have to replace it so the caverns don't collapse. You have to replace it with water. But water, salt is, soluble in water. So when you put in water, it starts to eat into the caverns. So we're reaching a point where you don't want to add too much water and destroy the caverns. And it becomes more and more difficult to pull oil out of the caverns. And so we're reaching a limit as to how much more we can pull out. We're at the lowest level in 35 years, or since the 80s, I think. And once we stop pulling, oil out of the reserves, the price of gas may jump between 15 and 35 cents a gallon, which Trump obviously doesn't want. So what else can Trump do? He can let sanctioned oil into the markets, like we have sanctions on Russian oil. He can let Russian oil into the market because Trump is going to be desperate to not go into the
oil and everything like that. Apparently, we got some new news from Iran about the oil because they're saying, and this came from NPR about 35 minutes ago, that Iran aims to ban U.S. and Israeli ships from the Strait of Hormuz and charge others a toll. So they're basically saying that if you're a U.S. or an Israeli ship, you're not coming through here and everything like that. And this is something the NPR just reported like 35 minutes ago and everything like that. So we'll see what goes on because they're saying that gold payers gain.
I think it's common sense that Iran wants the Republicans to lose the midterms because Trump, there have been no limits put on Trump's actions in the Mideast. But if the Democrats take over the House, they can at least have a symbolic vote denying Trump the authorization for further military action, though Trump will probably ignore that. But I don't know what happens. Like, if Trump, if the U.S., if the House and Senate under the Democrats, if they're lucky enough to get both houses, if they say you cannot no longer wage war, does that mean that Iran behaves less dickishly to make it, as a reward for the Congress putting some limits on Trump? I don't know.
I don't know either. I wonder if Trump's going to get, because he already got his plane, I wonder if he's going to get a new boat, because apparently the mega yacht Amadei has been sold for $187 million to a Dubai billionaire with Trump ties. So maybe he's going to turn around and then give Trump the boat or sell him the boat and everything like that. But apparently this billionaire that's got Trump ties just spent $187 billion to get this mega yacht Amadei.
I don't know. Trump has never been a yacht guy, as far as I know. He's always been a plane guy. He's always owned a plane. He had Trump Airlines for a while. He likes to be able to fly places to play golf on the weekend. So I don't know if I doubt he's got an interest in a yacht.
What is it with these ex-presidents? We were talking about Bolsonaro on the news, but they want to go back to their country. So I'm seeing another story, and this is the case. Maybe we'll talk to Sharif on tomorrow and everything. But Sheikh Hasina is vowing to return, but will Bangladesh accept the convicted ex-prime minister? So this ousted Bangladeshi leader says she will return from exile despite death sentences. So this is a woman leader, and she could face execution if she returns home. But she says she wants to go home, and who knows, maybe she'll try to run for office again. So a lot of these leaders like to go back to their homes that they are from, and all in that space. So
I don't know. I mean, Dr. Sharif is somewhat limited in what he can say about Bangladesh in a public forum because you don't want to piss off the government.
You don't want to piss off the government, particularly when you're working with the government in terms of doing some of the projects that he's working on and all along those lines. So you definitely want to be diplomatic, for lack of a better term.
So I don't know how competent and organized the Bangladeshi government is. I know they've had problems in the past. I mean, their whole history has been filled with issues that Bangladesh started off, well, it all started off as part of India. India gets independence, but there are big chunks of population that to the east on the east side of India and the west side of India are big Muslim populations. So they took, in the late 40s, they took both these chunks of India, turned them into a new country, a Muslim country called Pakistan. So there's Pakistan to the west, 1,500 miles to the east, you have the other part of Pakistan. That was East Pakistan. It wasn't workable. You couldn't have one country in two halves 1,500 miles apart. So eventually East Pakistan became its own country, Bangladesh. And, they've had political struggles, that you'd have with a new country, and probably struggles with, I would assume, corruption and natural disasters. And I don't know if their shit is together. I assume it's more together than at times in its past. It's got a
Yeah.
huge, it's got a huge, it's got 160 million people. It's a big ass country. It's got the population of Russia, and they are manufacturing heavy. I assume that they're pro tech. That they could really become a standout country with competent leadership.
Speaking of competent leadership, are you buying this notion of McConnell being in a rehab center and he's now going home and everything like that?
I buy that he's alive. He said he's in a rehab center in a statement, but he has not released video in 2 months. So I would guess I think he's alive, but we don't know if he's all stroked out, whether he can actually say stuff. We've seen no video of him since he was taken away in an ambulance more than 7 weeks ago.
By the way, Elon Musk is in the news.
Go ahead. Okay. No, you go. If I had to bet, I would say that he's in a state that he couldn't serve in the Senate anymore.
Yeah, but I think that's probably the case. Elon Musk is back in the news. Apparently, the Trump Department of Government Efficiency claimed $110.3 billion in savings, but the GAO found support for only 4% of Doge's savings claim. So Doge exaggerated savings and lacks evidence for many claims. So President Trump's Department of Government Efficiency made grand claims about the savings it earned taxpayers, but much of those never came to pass, and a new audit by the Government Accountability Office, Congress's chief investigative agency, said Doge took credit for cuts already in the pipeline, exaggerated some claims, and couldn't provide evidence for others. All told, of the $110.3 billion that Doge claimed to have saved, the GAO said it found solid support for only 4% of those claims. So apparently Trump, must be doing another Trump number.
Let's do some math. Trump and Musk said that Doge would cut the federal budget by $2 trillion.
Mm-hmm.
Now, in reality, Trump has increased federal spending by almost $2 trillion just in the year and a half he's been in office. We have a $40 trillion deficit right now. 28% of that deficit was generated under Trump. So instead of saving $2 trillion, they claim to have saved $110 billion. But the Government Accounting Office says they only saved $4.5 billion. That is about less than 1/4 of 1% of what Doge claimed it would save. It's a disaster because the lives wrecked via the firings, the lives lost via getting rid of U.S. aid, which amount to hundreds of thousands of people in foreign countries so far, and millions of people by 2030. They caused all sorts of disruption and didn't save jack shit.
Didn't save a thing whatsoever or all along those lines. So we'll see what happens in that regard. So I got to get ready to get the Coco show, but this has been a good show for about 30 minutes or so along those lines, and we'll be back with World Edition on tomorrow morning and everything like that. But right now it's time for us to get out of here. Right. We got Coco McMillan coming up at 6 o'clock.
All right. See you tomorrow. Thank you.
See you tomorrow.